The housekeeper mistook the billionaire CEO for an ordinary guest. But his family's secret changed everything. Today, this story isn't about fairy tales. It's about what happens when a housekeeper treats a billionaire like a regular person and discovers he was looking for someone who could see his true essence and not his fortune. The left wheel of the cleaning cart had a personality of its own. And that Tuesday in March, it decided it didn't want to cooperate anymore. Emma Sullivan was pushing the cart down the 10th floor hallway of the Sterling Grand Hotel when she felt the wheel lock up. Always at the worst possible moment. She crouched down, muttering words her grandmother from Minnesota definitely wouldn't approve of. "Come on, you stubborn thing," she whispered, pulling the wheel hard. "I just need to finish this floor and then you can lock up all you want." The cart didn't respond. Obviously, it was a cart. Emma pulled harder. The wheel resisted. She pulled even harder, using all her body weight, and then the wheel gave way. All at once, Emma lost her balance and landed on her backside on the carpeted hallway floor. At the exact moment the door to Suite 11012 opened, a man appeared in the doorway. Tall, dark hair with some gray at the temples, impeccable suit, the expression of someone who hadn't slept properly in at least a week. He looked at Emma on the floor, then at the cart, then at Emma again. "Are you all right?" Emma felt her face flush. Of all the doors in that hallway, of all possible moments, it had to be that door and that moment. "Perfectly," she said, trying to look professional while literally sitting on the carpet. It's a maintenance procedure, preventive, for the cart." The man raised an eyebrow. "Maintenance procedure?" "Yes, it's a new protocol. Very technical, you wouldn't understand." She got up too quickly. Her hip bumped the cart, and 3 rolls of toilet paper jumped from the top shelf as if they had a mind of their own. All 3 went rolling down the hallway in different directions. One went left, another went right. The third, because the universe clearly had a sense of humor, rolled directly to the expensive shoes of the man in the suit and stopped there, resting against the polished leather. Emma froze. The man looked at the toilet paper roll at his feet. Then he looked at Emma. His expression didn't change, but something at the corner of his mouth twitched, almost as if, no, impossible. This man clearly hadn't smiled since the previous administration. "Preventive maintenance procedure," he repeated without inflection. "It's very technical," Emma heard her own voice say, because apparently her mouth had disconnected from her brain. "It involves checking stability of the rolls during impacts to ensure the integrity of the paper." Silence. "The integrity of the paper," he said. "You'd be surprised how important paper integrity is in the hotel industry." For a second, Emma could have sworn she saw the corner of his mouth rise a millimeter, but the expression returned to normal so quickly she thought she'd imagined it. "I need extra towels," he said, changing the subject as if the previous scene hadn't happened. "If it won't interfere with the protocol." "Of course. Absolutely. I'll leave them at the door in 10 minutes. He nodded once, picked up the toilet paper roll at his feet, and extended it to her. Emma took it, her hands trembling slightly. "Thank you," she said. "Good luck with the preventive maintenance," and he closed the door. Emma stood in the hallway, holding the toilet paper roll, staring at the closed door of 112. Preventive maintenance procedure. Roll stability verification. Paper integrity. She wanted to dig a hole in the expensive carpet and live there forever. On the other side of the door, Nathan Harrington leaned his forehead against the cold wood and closed his eyes. "Don't laugh," he told himself. "You can't laugh. You have a crisis to solve. You don't have time to laugh." But the image of the housekeeper sitting on the floor inventing the most absurd excuse he'd ever heard in his life kept coming back to his mind. Paper integrity. The corner of his mouth twitched again. Nathan was 36 years old. He was CEO of Harrington Hotels, 17 properties spread across the country. He was in the middle of the biggest crisis in the company's history. He hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night, and he hadn't laughed, really laughed. In how long? Weeks? Months? And now, because of a clumsy employee with a rebellious cart and an impressive ability to invent excuses, he had almost broken that streak. "Focus," he ordered himself. "You have real problems." And he did. His phone buzzed in his pocket. It was the 10th call of the morning. Nathan answered. "Grace." "Nathan." The lawyer's voice was tense. "We need to talk. In person." "What happened now?" A pause. Grace Chen wasn't the type to make dramatic pauses. The fact that she was hesitating meant the news was particularly bad. "We found the source of the leak," she finally said. "The information reaching the press, it's not coming from outside." Nathan felt his stomach drop. "What do you mean?" "I mean, someone inside the company is feeding the reporters. Someone with access to your father's files. Someone who knows exactly where to look." Nathan closed his eyes again. The financial crisis inherited from his father was bad enough. Discovering there were irregularities in the accounting books had been worse. But knowing that someone on the inside was actively trying to destroy what was left of the family's reputation. "Who?" he asked. "We don't know yet, but we're close." "Nathan?" Grace hesitated again. "This person knows secrets that even you don't know. Things your father kept hidden for years. You need to prepare yourself." "Prepare myself for what?" "For the possibility that your father wasn't who you thought he was." Nathan stayed silent. Outside the window, Chicago stretched out in a sea of buildings and possibilities. He had come to this hotel, his own hotel, to solve the crisis away from the board's eyes, to have space to think. But now it seemed the problems had come along. "I'm coming down," he told Grace. "Meet me at the office in 20 minutes. He hung up. For a moment he stood still in the quiet room. The suite was too big for just one person, too elegant for someone who barely had time to notice the decor. He thought briefly about the housekeeper in the hallway, about the way she had invented that absurd story without blinking, about the unshakable conviction with which she had defended the paper integrity. It was strange. It was completely senseless. And it had been the funniest thing Nathan had witnessed in months. He shook his head, pushing the thought away. He had bigger problems than clumsy employees. He had a legacy to save. He had a traitor to find. He had a father to defend, or at least his memory. Nathan adjusted the knot of his tie in the mirror. As always, it ended up slightly crooked. He could never get that knot right. He grabbed his phone, wallet, and documents. Opened the door. The hallway was empty now. The housekeeper had left. But the 2 remaining toilet paper rolls were still on the floor, leaning against the wall, as evidence that the scene had actually happened. Nathan looked at them for a moment. Then, without knowing exactly why he was doing it, he picked up both rolls and placed them back on the abandoned cleaning cart, and went to solve the problems that actually mattered. 3 floors down, in the employees' locker room, Emma Sullivan was sitting on the wooden bench, staring at her reflection in the stained mirror. "Paper integrity," she said out loud to herself. You looked a guest in the eye and said paper integrity. Her reflection had no comforting answers to offer. Her phone buzzed. A message from her neighbor. "Your cat invaded my apartment again. This time he knocked over my fern. You owe me a new fern." Emma sighed. "Napoleon." "Course." She typed a quick reply. "Sorry, Martha, I'll bring a fern tomorrow. Did he escape again?" The response came immediately. "He doesn't escape. He conquers. This cat thinks he owns the entire building." Despite everything, Emma smiled. Napoleon was a 2-pound cat with the personality of a Roman emperor. The name was ironic, but increasingly appropriate. She put away her phone and looked back at the mirror. The guest in 1012. Who was he? There was something in his eyes. It wasn't arrogance. Emma knew arrogance. She'd cleaned enough rooms of arrogant people to recognize it. It was more like wariness. An ancient weariness settled in the bones, and that almost smile. She hadn't imagined it. The corner of his mouth had definitely twitched. "Stop being silly," she told herself. "He's just a guest. A guest who saw you fall on the floor and invent the most pathetic excuse in the history of hospitality. You'll probably never see him again." Emma stood up, adjusted her uniform, and went back to work. After all, she had extra towels to deliver to 1012. And this time, she was going to leave them at the door without being seen. Definitely without being seen. 3 encounters in 2 days. Emma started to think the universe was making fun of her. The first happened in the service elevator. She was carrying a bag of bed linens to the laundry when the doors opened on the 10th floor and Nathan Harrington stepped in. Silence. Emma looked at the ceiling, at the floor, at the bag of linens, anywhere but at the man in the suit standing half a meter from her. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning," she replied, and her voice came out strangely high-pitched. "Morning, good. Good morning, which I already said. Twice." Nathan didn't respond, but the corner of his mouth did that thing again. That tiny twitch, that may or may not have been a smile, trying to be born. The doors opened at the lobby. Emma practically ran out. The second encounter was in the hallway near the hotel restaurant the next day. Emma was passing with her cart, the wheel cooperating for the first time that week, when Nathan appeared, coming from the opposite direction. They tried to move out of each other's way, to the same side. Emma went left, Nathan went left. Emma corrected to the right, Nathan corrected to the right. And they did this awkward dance for at least 4 attempts before Emma simply stopped. "After you, sir," she said, gesturing with her hand. "No, go ahead." "I insist. I also insist." They stood there looking at each other for a moment. Emma felt her cheeks getting warm. "This is statistically improbable," she said, because apparently her brain had decided silence wasn't an option. 4 attempts. The probability of moving to the same side 4 consecutive times is... She paused, calculating. 1 in 16, 6%. We're statistically unlucky. Nathan raised an eyebrow. "You calculated that just now?" "I like numbers," Emma said, and immediately regretted it. "I mean, not in an obsessive way. In a normal way. Totally normal." Silence. 6%, Nathan repeated. "It's a round number, easy to calculate." The almost smile appeared again. This time, Emma was sure it wasn't her imagination. "Go ahead," he said, stepping to the side. Emma passed, pushing the cart harder than necessary. The wheel made a protesting noise. The third encounter was in the hotel restaurant at 6:45 in the morning. Emma was at the counter getting coffee before her shift, when she noticed Nathan was sitting at a table near the window. Alone, with a laptop open, staring at the screen as if the computer had personally offended his mother. She tried to leave without being noticed. She was almost at the door when... "Miss Sullivan," Emma froze. Turned slowly. "How do you know my name?" Nathan pointed at the badge on her uniform. Emma looked down. "Of course, the badge." "Is the preventive maintenance procedure going well?" he asked. It was a joke. He was making a joke. The CEO with dark circles under his eyes and the expensive suit was making a joke about her falling on the floor. "Very well," Emma said, because she couldn't think of anything better. "No toilet paper rolls have been harmed since then." Nathan nodded, as if this were relevant information. "Sit down." It wasn't a question. It also wasn't exactly an order. It was something in between, said by someone who clearly wasn't used to hearing no. Emma should refuse. Employees didn't sit with guests. It was against at least 3 regulations she could remember. She sat down. "Coffee?" Nathan offered, pointing to the pitcher on the table. "I already have some." Emma showed him her thermal cup. "But thank you." Silence. It wasn't uncomfortable exactly. It was more like expectant, as if both of them were waiting to see who would speak first. Emma lost. "Do you live here?" she asked, and immediately regretted it. "Sorry, that was invasive." "You don't have to answer. You've been here for 2 weeks, in the same room, and you order room service every night, and the trays come back barely touched. And I'm noticing too many things about a guest I don't even know, which is probably inappropriate and..." "Temporarily," Nathan interrupted. Emma stopped mid-sentence. "What?" "I'm living here temporarily. Work issues." "Oh." Another silence. Emma took a sip of her coffee to have something to do with her hands. "You mentioned a cat," Nathan said suddenly. Emma almost choked. "I did. In the elevator. Yesterday. You were on the phone." Emma tried to remember. The service elevator. She had answered a call from her neighbor complaining about Napoleon while waiting for the 7th floor. "You heard me on the phone?" "The elevator is small." "I know, but... and you talk loud." Emma felt her face flush for the 3rd time that morning. "Napoleon," she said, because clearly she had no filter. "The cat. His name is Napoleon. It's ironic because he's very small, but he has imperialist tendencies." Nathan said nothing. He just waited. "He doesn't recognize territorial boundaries," Emma continued, because her mouth had decided this was a fascinating subject. "He's already invaded my neighbor's apartment 7 times this month, knocked over 2 ferns, a flower vase, and an entire collection of Mexican soap opera DVDs. The neighbor is convinced he does it on purpose." "Does he?" "Probably. He has this look, you know? Like he's planning his next conquest." The almost smile appeared again, more pronounced this time. "A reincarnated colonizer," Nathan said. Emma laughed before she could stop herself. "Exactly that. My neighbor says he needs therapy. I say he needs an empire to rule." For a moment, they sat in silence, but it was a different silence now. Lighter. Nathan's phone buzzed on the table. He looked at the screen and his expression changed instantly. All the warmth disappeared from his face, replaced by something hard and closed off. "I need to go," he said, already standing up. "Of course, me too. My shift starts at—" But Nathan was already walking away, phone pressed to his ear, shoulders tense. Emma watched him go. Something was very wrong in that man's life. She didn't know what, but she recognized the weight on someone's back when they were carrying too many secrets. In the makeshift office on the executive floor, Grace Chen was waiting with a folder full of documents. "Nathan," she said as soon as he walked in, "we need to talk." "What is it now?" Grace placed the papers on the table. Photos, bank statements, reports. "We confirmed who's leaking information to the press." Nathan picked up the documents. His eyes scanned the pages. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. And there's more." Grace hesitated. "The information being leaked, it's not just about the financial irregularities. It's about your father specifically. Personal things. Things even you didn't know." Nathan looked at her. "What kind of things?" Grace didn't respond immediately. She had that expression Nathan knew well. The expression of someone about to deliver news that would change everything. "We found monthly transfers," she finally said, "for the last 30 years, to an account in the name of a woman named Diane, in a town called Millbrook." "Nathan?" She paused. "I think your father had a life nobody knew about." Nathan stood still, looking at the documents without really seeing them. 30 years. His father had hidden something for 30 years. And now, when he thought the crisis couldn't get worse, the accusations were about to go public. The entire legacy, the entire reputation, everything Nathan had worked to protect, was about to crumble. Emma had developed a theory about the guest in Team 12. Actually, she had developed several theories. That's what happens when you spend too much time observing someone who clearly doesn't want to be observed. Theory number 1. He was an international spy disguised as an executive. That would explain the dark circles, the constant stress, and the fact that he barely left his room. Theory number 2. He was hiding something from the mob. Maybe he owed money. Maybe he was a protected witness. That would explain why he lived in a hotel instead of a normal apartment. Theory number 3. And this was the most likely. He was just a very rich businessman with very rich problems. Like taxes, or divorce, or both. Emma was leaning toward Theory 3 when she realized she was standing in the hallway of the 10th floor, staring at the door of 1012, holding a coffee tray that nobody had ordered. "What are you doing?" she asked herself. Good question. She didn't have a good answer. In the last few days, Emma had started noticing things. Small things. The kind of thing a professional employee definitely shouldn't be noticing about a guest. Like the fact that he always wore a tie, even at 7 in the morning, but the knot was always slightly crooked, as if he tried to get it right and never could. Like the fact that the room light stayed on until after midnight. She knew because she had developed the ridiculous habit of looking at the 10th floor window when she left the night shift. Like the fact that the food trays came back barely touched. The chef had even commented, "The guy in 1012 eats like a bird." Nathan Harrington was a man surrounded by people, employees, waiters, receptionists, and yet completely alone. Emma recognized loneliness. She had experience with it. She was so lost in her own thoughts that she didn't notice when the door to 1012 opened. "You've been standing there for 3 minutes." Emma almost dropped the tray. Nathan was standing in the doorway, jacket thrown over his shoulder, expression unreadable. "I wasn't," Emma lied very badly. "I was checking the hallway's cleanliness." Nathan looked at the hallway. It was spotless. Of course it was. Emma had personally cleaned it 2 hours earlier. "With a coffee tray," he said. "It's part of the verification protocol. The same protocol that includes preventive cart maintenance." Emma felt her face flush. "This is a different protocol, more advanced." The corner of his mouth twitched, that almost smile she was starting to recognize. "You're a terrible liar," he said. "I know," Emma admitted, because there was no point pretending. "It's one of my many talents." Nathan was silent for a moment, studying her face. Emma felt like a laboratory sample. What did he see? An overly curious housekeeper? An employee who didn't respect professional boundaries? "Is the coffee for me?" he finally asked. Emma looked at the tray in her hands as if seeing it for the first time. "I think so. Actually, I don't even know why I brought this. You didn't order it. She stopped. frustrated with her own inability to form coherent sentences. "I noticed you're not eating properly, and I thought maybe, I don't know, coffee helps." Silence. For one horrible second, Emma thought he was going to close the door in her face, or worse, report her to HR for harassment. But he just stepped to the side. "Come in." It wasn't an order. But it also wasn't a normal invitation. It was something in between. A decision made against his own judgment. Emma entered. The suite was impersonal, too organized. It had that five-star hotel smell of manufactured freshness and luxurious anonymity. No photos on the shelf, no personal items in sight, just piles of documents on the work desk and the eternally open laptop. Emma placed the tray on the coffee table. "Can I ask you something?" she said before she could stop herself. Nathan raised an eyebrow. "You're gonna ask anyway." "Probably," she admitted. Do you ever go out? Ever go anywhere? I've worked here for 3 years and I've never seen a guest so stationary." Stationary. It's a real word. It means not moving, like a piece of furniture or a plant. I know what it means. Then you seem like an elegant piece of furniture or a very expensive plant. The almost smile appeared again. "I have a lot of work," Nathan said, and there was something in his voice. Wariness, perhaps, or resignation. "Work that prevents you from eating?" "Work that takes away the appetite." Emma nodded slowly. She knew that kind of work. Her grandmother had worked like that her whole life, until the illness left her no choice. "My grandmother always said problems seem smaller after you eat," she said. "Especially if there's bacon involved." Nathan was silent for a long moment. "Your grandmother sounds wise." "She was," Emma said. "She passed away 4 years ago. She raised me by herself after my parents. Well, that's too much personal information to share with a guest. Sorry, I do that, talk too much. It's a problem." I had noticed. Everyone notices. More silence. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was almost familiar. Nathan's phone rang. He looked at the screen, and Emma saw the transformation happen. The shoulders stiffening, the jaw clenching, all the lightness disappearing. "I need to take this," he said. "Of course. I was just leaving." Emma went to the door, stopped with her hand on the handle. "Mr. Harrington?" He looked at her, the phone still ringing in his hand. "The bacon really works," she said. "Trust me." And she left before he could respond. In the office on the executive floor, Nathan answered the call with his stomach churning. "Grace. Nathan, we need to meet. Now." "What happened?" "The payments to Millbrook. We traced the account. It's not a mistress. It's worse." Nathan closed his eyes. "Tell me." "The woman, Diane. She has a son, a 28-year-old man. Nathan," Grace paused for what seemed like an eternity. "DNA doesn't lie. Your father had another family. You have a half-brother." The world stopped. Nathan stood frozen in the middle of the room, staring at nothing, trying to process the words he had just heard. A half-brother. 30 years of lies. And he had no idea. "Nathan?" Grace's voice sounded distant. "Are you there?" "I'm here," he said, but his own voice seemed to belong to someone else. "Are you sure? Absolutely sure? I have the documents, the tests, everything." Nathan looked out the window. Chicago stretched as far as the eye could see. Buildings, people, lives happening. And somewhere, in a town called Millbrook, there was a man who was his brother. A man he had never met. A man who might not even know he existed. His father had kept this secret for 3 decades. What other secrets had he taken to the grave? Nathan hung up without saying anything else. On the coffee table, the cup of coffee Emma had brought was slowly getting cold. He hadn't even touched it. 7 in the morning. The hotel restaurant was almost empty. Just a few early rising guests and a waiter discreetly yawning near the coffee station. Emma shouldn't be there. Her shift didn't start until 8. But she had woken up at 5 with Napoleon walking on her face, demanding attention like the little dictator he was, and she couldn't get back to sleep. So there she was, sitting at a table in the corner, with a cup of coffee that had already gone cold twice, and a croissant she was only pretending to eat. She didn't expect to see Nathan. But when he appeared at the entrance of the restaurant at 7:12, Emma felt her stomach do a flip that had nothing to do with the coffee. He noticed her. For a second, Emma thought he was going to turn around and leave. But then something in his expression changed. A decision being made, and he walked toward her. "May I?" He pointed to the empty chair. "It's a free country," Emma said, and immediately regretted it. "I mean, yes, of course, sit down." Nathan sat down. He looked different today, more tired than usual, if that was possible. The dark circles were darker, and there was a tension in his shoulders that Emma hadn't seen before. "Are you okay?" she asked before she could stop herself. Nathan raised an eyebrow. "Why do you ask?" "Because you look like you haven't slept since coffee was invented." Silence. Then, against all odds, Nathan laughed. It wasn't a full laugh. It was more of a puff of air, an exhale that almost formed a sound. But it was the closest thing to a laugh Emma had seen from him. "Before that," he corrected, "I haven't slept since coffee came from beans and not pods." "When was that, 1995? "Feels longer. I understand. My cat wakes me up at 5 in the morning every day. Solidarity insomnia." The corner of his mouth rose. That almost smile. "You're strange," he said, but it didn't sound like an insult. "I know," Emma agreed. "It's another one of my talents, along with lying badly and talking too much." The waiter appeared with a coffee pot. Nathan ordered a cup. Emma ordered a refill, even though she was already on her third. When the waiter walked away, a silence settled between them. But it was different from the previous silences. Heavier, more loaded. "Can I ask you something?" Nathan said suddenly. Emma almost choked on her coffee. He was asking if he could ask. Nathan Harrington, the man who gave orders like he breathed, was asking permission. "Of course." "Why do you work here?" Emma blinked. "What do you mean?" "You're intelligent. Observant. You speak 5 languages, from what I heard at the front desk last week. Why housekeeping?" Emma felt her face flush. He had heard her talking at the front desk. He paid attention. "It's not 5, she corrected. "It's 4. And Spanish only enough to order food." "The question still stands." Emma looked at the coffee cup in her hands. "How do you explain something you don't fully understand yourself?" "My grandmother got sick," she finally said. "When I was 22, I was in college, studying hotel management. I had plans. I was going to open an inn in the countryside, you know? A small, cozy place, with homemade breakfast and cats in the garden." She paused. Nathan said nothing. He just waited. "But then my grandmother got sick, and 5-year plans became 1-year plans, then 1-month plans. Then she was gone, and I was 26 years old, no degree, no money, and a cat with imperialist tendencies to support." "So you came to work here?" "It was temporary," Emma said, and laughed without humor. "That was 3 years ago. My 5-year plan is now 8 years behind schedule." The silence that followed was different, softer. Nathan was looking at her as if seeing her for the first time. Not as a funny employee who fell in the hallway, but as a person with a history, with losses, with postponed dreams. "And the inn?" he asked. "It's still here." Emma pointed to her own head. "Completely planned. Even the breakfast menu. Blueberry pancakes on Mondays, eggs Benedict on Wednesdays, waffles with bacon on Sundays." "Why bacon on Sundays?" "Because Sunday is bacon day. Everyone knows that." The almost smile appeared again, more pronounced now. "And you?" Emma asked before she lost the courage. "Why are you living in a hotel? I mean, I know it's work issues, but—" She let the sentence hang. Nathan was silent for a long moment. Emma saw the conflict on his face, the desire to speak fighting against the habit of closing off. "My father passed away 6 months ago," he finally said. Emma didn't expect that. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." His voice was hard, but it wasn't hardness against her. It was hardness against something she couldn't see. "He left a mess. The company, the finances, He stopped. "He left a lot of problems, and I'm here trying to clean them up." "Alone?" "Alone." "What about your family? Your mother?" Something in Nathan's expression closed off. "My mother has her own concerns." Emma recognized the tone. It was the same tone she used when someone asked about her parents. The tone of, "This subject is closed." She didn't push. "You know what my grandmother would say?" Emma offered after a moment. "Bacon?" Emma laughed, genuinely surprised. "That too. But she'd say that shared problems weigh less. That sometimes you just need someone who will listen, without judging, without trying to fix things, just listen." Nathan looked at her for a long moment. There was something in his eyes, gratitude, perhaps, or something else Emma couldn't name. "You're very strange," he said again. "You already said that." "It's worth repeating." Emma smiled, and for the first time since she had met Nathan Harrington, he smiled back. It wasn't a full smile. It was more of a ghost of a smile, a promise of a smile. But it was real. Nathan's phone buzzed on the table. He looked at the screen, and Emma saw the color drain from his face. "What is it?" she asked. Nathan didn't respond. He was reading something on the screen, his eyes moving quickly. "Nathan?" He looked up. The vulnerability Emma had seen seconds before had completely disappeared, replaced by something cold and controlled. "I need to go," he said, already standing up. "Wait, what?" But he was already leaving, phone clutched in his hand, steps quick. Emma watched him go, confused and worried. What had happened? The answer came 10 minutes later, when the manager turned on the TV in the restaurant to the news channel. Financial scandal. Harrington family accused of billion-dollar fraud. Heir under investigation. On the screen, a photo of Nathan appeared next to headlines that Emma could barely process. Harrington, the guest in 1012. The man she had just had coffee with. The man who had almost smiled at her. He was a Harrington. He was the owner of the hotel where she worked. And she had no idea. Emma had seen the scandal on TV. She had seen the Harrington name in the headlines. She had connected the dots about the financial crisis. But she hadn't realized that the guest in 1012 was the Nathan Harrington. The owner. The CEO. That she discovered from an envelope. It was the day after the breakfast. Emma was cleaning the 10th floor, avoiding 1012 as much as possible, when she saw it. A white envelope on the hallway floor near the door of 1012. It had probably fallen when someone delivered mail. Emma bent down to pick it up and read the name. Nathan Harrington, CEO, Harrington Hotels Harrington. Like the hotel, like the headlines. Emma stood frozen in the hallway, holding the envelope, her brain trying to process what her eyes were seeing. The guest in 1012 wasn't just a guest. He was the owner. He was the Nathan Harrington. And she had spent weeks talking too much, telling him about her imperialist cat, about her inn plans, about bacon on Sundays. She had brought coffee without being asked. She had called him an elegant piece of furniture. She had said he looked like he hadn't slept since coffee was invented. Emma felt her stomach sink. She knew she should just put the envelope back on the floor and pretend she had never seen it. But her fingers were already grabbing her phone, already opening the browser, already typing the name. Nathan Harrington. The results appeared instantly. Photos of Nathan at gala events in an impeccable suit. Nathan receiving business awards. Nathan on the covers of finance magazines. Nathan next to a stunningly beautiful blonde woman. Nathan Harrington and Victoria Chase, Chicago's golden couple. Emma clicked on the photo. The caption said, Nathan Harrington with then-fiancée Victoria Chase at a charity gala event. Fiancé, ex-fiancé apparently. But still, Emma kept looking. More photos of Victoria Chase. Victoria on runways. Victoria and luxury brand campaigns. Victoria with 6 million followers on social media. 6 million. Emma had 83 followers, and 30 of them she didn't even know who they were. She kept looking. The most recent headlines were all about the scandal. Harrington Empire under investigation. CEO denies father's fraud. Billionaire family faces biggest crisis in decades. Billionaire. Emma closed her phone. The man she had called an expensive plant was a billionaire. The man she had poured out her entire life story to, the sick grandmother, the postponed plans, the conquering cat, owned 17 hotels, and was the ex-fiancé of a model with 6 million followers. And he hadn't said anything. Emma didn't know if she was more surprised or more furious. Probably both. Definitely both. She slid the envelope under the door of 1012, with more force than necessary, and went back to the cleaning cart. The wheel locked immediately. Because of course it did. I can't believe it, Emma muttered to the wheel. Of all the guests in this hotel, I had to get interested in the billionaire? The owner? The man who probably thinks I'm a pathetic employee with a ridiculous cat? The wheel didn't respond, but Emma could have sworn it looked judgmental. Napoleon is not ridiculous, she continued, because apparently she now talked to cleaning equipment. He's a conqueror. It's different. Silence. And I'm not interested in him, Emma added. I was just being polite. Employees are polite to guests. It's the job. More silence. Stop looking at me like that, she said to the wheel. The wheel remained locked. Emma spent the rest of her shift avoiding the 10th floor, which wasn't easy considering it was her assigned floor. But she swapped with a colleague claiming gastrointestinal issues. The universal excuse nobody questioned. In the locker room after her shift, Emma did what any mature and emotionally stable person would do. She stalked Nathan's ex-fiancée for 2 hours. Victoria Chase was everything Emma wasn't. Tall where Emma was average, elegant where Emma stumbled, photographed at gala events where Emma was photographed holding a broom. And the comments. My goodness, the comments. Victoria is the most beautiful woman in Chicago. Perfection in human form. How can someone be so beautiful and so rich? Emma closed the app when she realized she was starting to compare her own posts, photos of Napoleon in embarrassing poses and memes about coffee, with Victoria's professional photo shoots. This is ridiculous, she said to Napoleon, who was lying on top of the laptop. I don't even like him. Not like that. He's just a guest. Napoleon blinked once, slowly, the way cats do when they think you're lying. Stop judging me, Emma said. You're a cat. You spend all day sleeping and invading Martha's apartment. You have no moral authority to judge anyone. Napoleon yawned. Exactly, Emma said as if he had agreed. She closed the laptop and went to the kitchen to make a sandwich. While she ate, without really tasting it, her phone rang, a message from her supervisor. Extra shift tomorrow? 10th floor. Double pay. Emma looked at the message for a long moment. The 10th floor. Where 1012 was. Where Nathan Harrington was, billionaire, ex-fiancé of a model, owner of the hotel. She should refuse. She should keep her distance. She should be professional and mature and… Okay, she typed. What time? Because apparently she was as smart as her cartwheel. Meanwhile, across the city, Nathan Harrington was sitting in the office on the executive floor, looking at an empty hallway on the security cameras. It wasn't stalker behavior, he told himself. It was just security verification, standard procedure. But his eyes kept returning to the same spot, the corner of the 10th floor, where Emma used to appear, pushing that cart with the defective wheel, muttering to herself, tripping on perfectly flat surfaces. Today the hallway was empty. She hadn't appeared. Nathan knew what that meant. She had found out. She had seen the headlines, made the connections, realized who he was, and now she was running away, like everyone ran away. He turned off the screen and went back to the documents on the desk. The crisis wasn't waiting. His father's problems weren't going to disappear. The half-brother in Millbrook still existed. And the only person Nathan had managed to really talk to in the last few weeks had just vanished. This is how it should be, he told himself. It was simpler this way, safer. But when Grace came in with more bad news, always more bad news, Nathan realized he was looking at the door. Waiting. For someone who probably wasn't going to appear. 2 weeks. 14 days of calculated dodges, changed schedules, and creative excuses. Emma had developed a whole system. Arrived early, left early, swapped shifts when the 10th floor was on the schedule, used the service stairs instead of the elevator, had lunch in the locker room instead of the cafeteria. It was exhausting, it was childish, and it was working perfectly. Until the note. Emma found it under the door of 1012, on a day when she hadn't managed to escape the 10th floor. It was on the floor, folded in half, with handwriting she would recognize anywhere. Clean, slanted, definitely from someone who had learned to write at a private school. She should throw it away. She should pretend she hadn't seen it. She opened it. Is Napoleon okay? 3 words. Intentional, because he knew she would look. Emma stood frozen in the hallway, holding the note, her heart doing things that hearts shouldn't do, because of 3 words about a cat. He had asked about Napoleon, the billionaire, owner of 17 hotels, in the middle of the biggest crisis of his career, had found time to ask about her imperialist cat. Emma folded the note, put it in her pocket, went back to the cart, and spent the next 3 days rehearsing responses she never sent. Option 1. Napoleon is fine. Thank you for asking. Please never speak to me again. Too aggressive. Option 2. Napoleon has conquered 2 more square meters of Martha's apartment. The empire expands, too casual, as if nothing had changed. Option 3. Why didn't you tell me who you were? Too honest. Emma wasn't ready for honest. In the end, she didn't respond at all. She threw the note in the dresser drawer, along with overdue bills and hair ties, and decided that silence was a perfectly valid response. Napoleon disagreed. You're strange, Emma told him as he sat in front of the drawer, as if he knew exactly what was inside. And I'm not going to respond. He's a billionaire. He has a model ex-fiancée. I have you, who destroys other people's ferns. Napoleon blinked. That's not an argument, Emma insisted. Stop looking at me like that. Napoleon kept looking. It was on a Thursday, 17 days after the fateful breakfast, that Emma saw Victoria Harrington for the first time. Not Victoria Chase, the ex-fiancée. Victoria Harrington. The mother. Emma was in the lobby restocking the cart when the woman walked in. 70-something years old, impeccable silver hair, the posture of someone who had never carried a shopping bag in her life. She wore a tweed suit that probably cost a small fortune, and she treated everyone around her as if they were invisible. The receptionist tried to greet her. Victoria walked right past without even looking. An employee held the door. Victoria didn't say thank you. A bellhop offered to help with her bag. Victoria dismissed him with a wave of her hand as if she were shooing away a fly. Emma felt a chill. This was Nathan's mother. This was his family. This was the world he came from. And suddenly, Emma understood. Understood why Nathan didn't smile, why he lived alone in a hotel, why he seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. With a mother like that, who needed enemies? Victoria crossed the lobby toward the elevators. For a second, just 1 second, her eyes landed on Emma, and Emma felt it. The look, it wasn't just indifference, it was recognition, as if Victoria knew exactly who Emma was, as if someone had told her. The look lasted less than 2 seconds. Then Victoria stepped into the elevator and disappeared. Emma stood frozen, her heart racing, trying to understand what had just happened. "Did you see that?" She murmured to the nearest colleague. "See what?" "The woman. The one in tweed. She looked at me." The colleague laughed. "Everyone looks at everyone, Emma. Relax." But Emma couldn't relax. There was something in that look. Something that said, "I know who you are, and you don't belong here, and stay away from my son," all at the same time. Or maybe Emma was being paranoid. She was probably being paranoid. On the 10th floor, Nathan was in a meeting that seemed endless. Grace had brought more documents, more evidence, more questions about the father he thought he knew. The payments to Millbrook were monthly, Grace explained. $15,000 for 30 years. That's over $5 million total. Nathan looked at the numbers without really seeing them. $5 million. Diverted to a woman named Diane, to a son named Lucas. For 3 decades. Meanwhile, his mother had lived in ignorance, or maybe not. Maybe Victoria had always known. Maybe this was just another thing the Harrington family swept under the rug and pretended didn't exist. "Nathan?" Grace's voice cut through his thoughts. "Are you listening to me?" "I am." "What do you want to do?" Nathan was silent for a long moment. What did he want to do? He wanted to go back in time. He wanted a father who didn't lie. He wanted a family that worked. He wanted to be able to talk to someone who wasn't a lawyer or an employee or interested in his money. Someone like Emma, who had vanished 2 weeks ago. "I'm going to Millbrook," he finally said. Grace's eyes widened. "What?" "I need to see. With my own eyes. I need to meet." He hesitated. "I need to know the truth." "Nathan, this is a terrible idea. If the press finds out." "I don't care." And it was true. For the first time in weeks, Nathan didn't care about the press, about the board, about appearances. He needed answers. He needed to understand who his father really was, even if the truth destroyed everything he thought he knew. The door opened. An employee came in with a coffee tray. It wasn't Emma. It was a middle-aged man with a mustache. Efficient, silent, invisible. Nathan felt something sink in his chest. "Thank you," he said to the employee, who nodded and left. Grace looked at him with curiosity. "Everything okay?" "Everything's fine," Nathan lied. "Book a flight to Millbrook. Tomorrow morning." "Nathan, please, Grace." She sighed, but she picked up the phone and started making reservations. Nathan looked out the window. Chicago stretched to the horizon, gray and impersonal. Somewhere out there, Emma was living her life, avoiding him, pretending the last few weeks hadn't happened. Maybe it was better this way. Maybe she was smarter than he was. But when Nathan closed his eyes, he didn't see documents or scandals or his father's face. He saw a clumsy woman falling in the hallway, inventing absurd excuses about preventive maintenance, talking about a conquering cat as if it were the most important thing in the world. And for the first time in a long time, Nathan Harrington wished he were just an ordinary guest. Emma was called to HR at 2 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. It's never good to be called to HR at 2 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Every employee knows this. Tuesday is firing day. 2 in the afternoon is bad news time. Emma was certain she was going to be fired. She spent the 15 minutes between receiving the call and arriving at the HR office mentally reviewing all the things she could have done wrong. The broken cart, the wheel that kept locking, the time she had arrived 3 minutes late, the entire week she had spent avoiding the 10th floor. The conversations with Nathan, the breakfasts with Nathan. The way she had looked at Nathan. She was in trouble. The HR office was in the hotel's basement, next to the laundry. It was a windowless room with beige walls and hospital lighting, the kind of place where dreams went to be buried. The HR manager, a man named Henderson who seemed permanently uncomfortable, was sitting behind the desk, and next to him, in a chair that looked absurdly expensive, was Victoria Harrington. Emma froze in the doorway. "Come in, Miss Sullivan," Henderson said. His voice was strangely high-pitched, nervous. "Close the door, please." Emma entered, closed the door, sat in the chair they indicated, and waited. Victoria looked at her the same way she had looked at her in the lobby, as if Emma were a particularly irritating insect. "Miss Sullivan," Henderson began, shuffling through some papers, "we received a formal complaint about your behavior." Emma's stomach sank. "A complaint?" "From Mrs. Harrington," Henderson gestured toward Victoria. "She alleges that you have been harassing her son, Mr. Nathan Harrington." Emma blinked. "Harassing?" Victoria spoke for the first time. Her voice was like broken ice, elegant and cutting. "You know exactly what I'm talking about, dear. The unsolicited visits to my son's room, the inappropriate conversations, the behavior." She paused, as if the next word were particularly unpleasant. "Suggestive behavior." Emma felt the blood rush to her face. "That's not true." "No? I didn't." Emma took a deep breath, trying to control herself. "Mr. Harrington and I talked a few times. As employee and guest, I never did anything inappropriate." Victoria smiled. It was the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You brought coffee to his room unsolicited. You entered his room alone. You followed him around the hotel." "I didn't follow. You were in the restaurant at 7 in the morning on the same day as him." "I was having coffee before my shift in the same restaurant at the same time." "By coincidence?" Emma wanted to scream, wanted to explain, wanted to say that Nathan had invited her to sit, that he had asked about her plans, that he had almost smiled at her as if it meant something. But she looked at Henderson, clearly terrified, clearly wanting to end this meeting as quickly as possible, and realized it didn't matter what she said. Victoria Harrington wanted her fired, and Victoria Harrington always got what she wanted. "I understand," Emma said, and she hated how her voice trembled. "And what happens now? Am I fired?" Henderson opened his mouth to respond, but was interrupted by the door opening. Nathan Harrington entered the room. He looked different. His eyes were harder, his jaw more tense. He wore a dark suit that made him look even more intimidating than usual. "Mother," he said, and the word sounded like a warning. "What are you doing?" Victoria didn't waver. "Solving a problem." "What problem?" "This employee," Victoria gestured toward Emma, "has been behaving inappropriately. I was just informing the Human Resources Department." Nathan looked at Emma. For a second, their eyes met, and Emma saw something there. Concern, perhaps, or anger. It was hard to tell. Then he looked at Henderson. "Is there any formal complaint on record against Miss Sullivan?" Henderson swallowed hard. "Well, Mrs. Harrington made a verbal complaint." "Verbal," Nathan repeated. "Not written, not documented." "No, sir, but... And have I, as the guest supposedly being harassed, made any complaint?" "No, sir." Nathan nodded slowly. "Then it seems to me there's no basis for this meeting. Miss Sullivan is an exemplary employee. I've never had any problem with her. If my mother," he looked at Victoria, "has concerns about my personal life, she can discuss them with me in private, not by involving innocent employees." The silence that followed was absolute. Victoria stood up. Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes hardened. "We will talk about this," she said to Nathan. "We will," Nathan agreed, "but not here." Victoria left without looking back. Henderson looked like he wanted to disappear into his own chair. "Miss Sullivan," he said quickly, "you can return to work. Sorry for the inconvenience." Emma nodded, unable to speak. She stood up, went to the door. "Miss Sullivan," it was Nathan. Emma stopped, her hand on the handle. "I'm sorry," he said, "for all of this." Emma looked at him. She wanted to say many things. She wanted to ask why he hadn't told her who he was. She wanted to know what had happened to them. She wanted to understand. But all she managed was, "Thank you." And she left. In the locker room 10 minutes later, Emma Sullivan cried. Not much. Not loudly, just a few silent tears that she wiped away with the sleeve of her uniform before anyone could see. It wasn't sadness, it was everything. The tension of the last few weeks, the fear of losing her job, the humiliation of being called suggestive by a woman who treated employees like objects, The confusion of seeing Nathan defend her. It was too much. It was too complicated. She didn't belong in that world. She never had. Nathan Harrington was a billionaire, heir to an empire, the target of national scandals, and she was a housekeeper with an imperialist cat and an in-dream that would probably never come true. What future could there be there? Emma dried her eyes, adjusted her uniform, looked at herself in the stained mirror. "You are professional," she told her reflection. "You are competent. You don't need complicated billionaires in your life." The reflection didn't look convinced. "Stop judging me," Emma muttered. "You're worse than Napoleon." And she went back to work. Because that's what people like her did. They went back to work, no matter what. Millbrook was the kind of town that seemed to have stopped in time. Old houses with white picket fences, trees shading narrow streets, a diner on the corner with a flickering neon sign. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone and news was the main form of entertainment. Nathan parked the rental car in front of a modest house on a street called Maple Avenue. It was a well-kept house, fresh paint, trimmed garden, flowers on the windowsill, and it was the place where his father had maintained a second life for 30 years. Nathan sat in the car for a long moment, hands on the steering wheel, trying to find the courage to get out. He didn't know what to expect. An angry woman? A house full of photos of his father? Evidence of decades of lies piled in every corner? But he wasn't prepared for what he found. The door opened before he knocked. A woman appeared in the doorway, graying hair pulled back in a loose bun, brown eyes that seemed to have seen too much, hands that trembled slightly. "You must be Nathan," she said. It wasn't a question. Yes. How did you? You look just like him," she said simply. "Come in. I think we have a lot to talk about." Her name was Diane. She was 55 years old. She had worked as a nurse at the local hospital for 3 decades. And yes, she had loved Nathan's father for longer than Nathan had been alive. "I knew he was married," Diane said, pouring coffee in the small but cozy kitchen. "From the beginning. I wasn't naive, but she paused, searching for the right words. "He was different with me, or at least I thought he was." Nathan held the coffee cup without drinking. "He couldn't." "Why did he never tell you?" Diane completed. "I think he was ashamed, not of me, of himself, of what he had done, of the lie he had created." The photos were in the living room. Nathan had seen them when he passed through. His father, younger, smiling genuinely, his father holding a baby. His father next to a boy of about 5 at an amusement park. Photos of a life Nathan didn't know. "Lucas," Nathan said. The name felt strange in his mouth. "Where is he?" "Working." "He's a teacher. High school." Diane hesitated. "He didn't know you were coming." "Does he know about me?" "He knows you exist. He found out when your father passed away, Lee, when the payments stopped and I had to explain." Nathan closed his eyes. The payments, $15,000 a month. That's how his father kept the 2 lives separate. With money. Buying silence. Buying distance. "I never asked for that money," Diane said, as if reading his thoughts. "But your father insisted. He said it was the least he could do. That Lucas deserved to have everything you had." "And did he?" Diane laughed without humor. "Look around, Nathan. Does this look like 17 hotels to you?" It didn't. It was a 2-bedroom house with secondhand furniture and a backyard that needed maintenance. It was the house of a nurse who worked double shifts to pay the bills. "I didn't come here to talk about money," Nathan said. "I came because I need to understand." "Understand what?" "Who my father really was." Diane was silent for a long moment. "Your father," she finally said, "was a man who wanted 2 lives and couldn't choose either one. He loved your mother in his way, loved me in his way, loved you and Lucas as much as he could, but he was never whole anywhere, never belonged completely to anyone." Nathan felt something tighten in his chest. It was the most accurate description of his father he had ever heard, and it came from a woman who, theoretically, should hate him. "You're not angry," Nathan said. "It wasn't a question." "I was," Diane admitted. "For years, but anger gets tiring, Nathan, and in the end, the only person it destroys is yourself." The front door opened. Nathan turned. A man walked in, about his age, but with something different. The eyes were the same, his father's eyes. The shape of the face, the way he frowned. It was like looking into a distorted mirror. "Mom?" the man said. "Whose car is that in the—" He stopped, looked at Nathan, and something in his expression changed. "Lucas," Diane said softly, "this is Nathan, your brother." Silence. Lucas looked at Nathan. Nathan looked at Lucas. 30 years of secrets suspended in the air between them. "I know who he is," Lucas said. His voice was controlled, but there was something underneath. Anger, perhaps, or hurt. "I saw the photos in the papers. The rich daddy scandal." "Lucas," Diane began. "No, Mom." Lucas looked at Nathan directly. "What do you want here? Came to see how the poor people live? Take pictures for the family album?" "I came to meet you," Nathan said. His voice was calmer than he expected. "Why?" "Because you're my brother, and I didn't know you existed." Lucas laughed. It was a bitter laugh without humor. "Well, now you know. Congratulations. You can go back to your billionaire life." "Lucas," Diane said again, more firmly. "No." Lucas shook his head. "I spent 28 years being his shameful secret, the son he hid, the mistake he paid to disappear. And now the crown prince shows up wanting to make peace? Like it's that simple?" Nathan swallowed. "I know it's not simple. You don't know anything. I know my father lied to me too. I know I spent my whole life thinking I knew him, and I didn't. I know you have every right to hate me, even though I didn't do anything wrong." Lucas was silent. "I didn't come here to apologize for my father," Nathan continued. "I don't have that right. I came because I wanted to see with my own eyes. I wanted to know who he really was, and now I know." "And what are you going to do with that?" Nathan thought for a moment. "I don't know yet," he admitted. "But you're my brother, like it or not. And I think we both deserve at least a chance to figure out what that means." Lucas didn't respond, but he also didn't tell Nathan to leave. It was a start. Nathan returned to Chicago at 3 in the morning. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't think about anything else. Lucas, Diane, a modest house in Millbrook. 30 years of secrets. The hotel was quiet when he entered. The hallways empty, the lights low, the kind of silence that seemed to press against your ears. Nathan went to the lobby for a drink. He needed a moment. He needed to process. He didn't expect to find Emma. She was coming out of the employee's locker room, her uniform wrinkled, her hair half loose. Night shift, probably. Or overtime. The kind of work people like Emma did to survive. She saw him before he could hide. Their eyes met. Emma stopped, looked at him, and Nathan saw the exact moment she realized something was very wrong. "Nathan?" she said. "Not Mr. Harrington. Just Nathan." And that simple sound, his name in her voice, was enough to break something inside him. "I found out," he said. The words came out before he could stop them. "My father, he had another family, a son, my brother, for 30 years. Emma said nothing, didn't try to fix it, didn't offer solutions. She just took a step toward him. And for the first time in a long time, Nathan Harrington wasn't alone. "You can't stay here." Emma said this looking at Nathan in the empty lobby bar at 3:15 in the morning, knowing perfectly well she was going to ignore her own words. "If someone sees you like this," she continued, "the journalists, the security team, anyone with a phone." Nathan didn't respond. He was sitting on one of the leather couches, his jacket thrown to the side, his tie loose. He looked like he had aged 10 years in one night. "Come," Emma said, making a decision she would probably regret. "I know a place." The place was the hotel rooftop. Technically, employees didn't have access. Technically, it was restricted to private events and guests from the executive floor. Technically, Emma could be fired just for being there. But she had discovered the unlocked door 2 years ago during an anxiety episode after a particularly difficult shift. And since then, that had been her secret refuge. "Watch the step," she said, guiding Nathan up the service stairs. Nathan nodded silently. Emma went up first. She pushed open the rooftop door. The cold Chicago air hit her immediately. March still tasted like winter in the city. "Wait," she said. "Let me." Emma stepped back to hold the door for Nathan, and she tripped. Over nothing. Literally nothing. The floor was perfectly flat, but her feet decided this was the ideal moment for a coordination failure. Nathan caught her before she fell. It was the first time he really touched her. His hand on her arm, firm and warm against the cold of the night. "Inner ear condition," Emma said quickly, her face burning. "And stubbornness. Dangerous combination." Nathan didn't smile, but he also didn't let go of her arm immediately. "You've said that before," he said. "I know, it's my official excuse. Repetition is the key to consistency." He let go of her. Emma felt the absence of his touch more than she should have. The rooftop was exactly as she remembered. A wide area with some plant pots that no one took care of, garden chairs stacked in a corner, and a view of Chicago that took your breath away. Emma went to the corner where she kept her things. She opened a maintenance chest she had secretly turned into a personal hiding spot. "Is that?" Nathan began. "Don't ask," Emma interrupted, pulling a blanket from inside the chest. "And before you say anything, yes, I took this from the hotel. Technically I shouldn't have, but it's a 3-star hotel blanket that someone was going to throw away anyway, so I prefer to call it creative recycling." Nathan looked at the blanket. Then he looked at Emma. And for the first time that night, something in his expression softened. "Creative recycling," he repeated. "It's a philosophy of life." Emma spread the blanket over 2 chairs she had positioned to watch the sunrise. She sat down. After a moment of hesitation, Nathan sat next to her. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that happens when 2 people are too exhausted to pretend. "Tell me," Emma finally said. "What?" "Everything. What you found out, why you're like this." Nathan was quiet for a long moment. Emma thought he wasn't going to answer. But then the words started coming out, slowly at first, then faster, like a dam breaking. He told her about Millbrook, about Diane and the modest house, about the photos of his father with another family, about Lucas, the brother he never knew existed. He told her about 30 years of lies, about the money diverted, about the double life his father had maintained while pretending to be an exemplary family man. He told her about Victoria, his mother, and how he didn't know if she had always known, or if she was as deceived as he was. And he told her about the feeling of looking at Lucas and seeing his own father's eyes looking back. Emma didn't interrupt, didn't try to fix it, didn't offer solutions or empty words of comfort. She just listened. When Nathan finished, the silence returned. But it was a different silence now, lighter, as if part of the weight had been shared. "That's horrible," Emma finally said. "I'm sorry." Nathan looked at her. "That's it. What else could I say?" Emma shrugged. "Your father did terrible things. You found out your whole life was built on lies. There's no magic phrase that fixes that. There's no look on the bright side, or everything happens for a reason. Sometimes things are just horrible, and the only thing we can do is—" She paused. "Not be alone while we process it." Nathan was silent. "My grandmother used to say that," Emma continued, "that grief not shared destroys you from the inside, that you need to let it out. Your grandmother seems to have said a lot of things. She was wise, and also kind of dramatic, traits I clearly inherited." The corner of Nathan's mouth twitched, that almost smile. "You're very strange," he said. It was the 3rd time he had said that to her. "And you repeat yourself a lot," Emma responded. "But I'll let it slide because you're having a rough night." They sat in silence, looking at the city. Chicago's lights sparkled below them, millions of lives happening simultaneously, each with their own dramas and secrets. "Why are you here?" Nathan asked suddenly. "What do you mean? You could have left. You could have pretended you didn't see me. After what my mother did." "Your mother is a horrible person," Emma said bluntly. "But you're not her." Nathan blinked. "Most people don't see the difference. Most people don't pay attention." Emma pulled the blanket higher. "I do. It's one of my talents, along with talking too much and falling on flat surfaces." The silence returned, but now it had a different quality, warmer, despite the cold of early morning. The sky began to lighten on the horizon, shades of pink and orange spreading over the skyscrapers. "I come here sometimes," Emma said, pointing at the sunrise, "when everything gets to be too much. It's nice to have a place that's just yours, you know? A place where nobody expects anything from you." Nathan looked at her. And Emma saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Real vulnerability, without filters. "Thank you," he said. "For this, for bringing me here." "Don't tell anyone about the blanket," Emma replied. "I really don't want to have a problem because of it." Nathan almost laughed. It didn't quite become a full laugh, but it was more than anything Emma had gotten from him before. They sat in silence, watching the sun rise over Chicago. At some point, without Emma realizing exactly when, Nathan's fingers found hers under the blanket. She didn't pull away, and when the sun finally broke the horizon, bathing everything in golden light, Emma held his hand for a long moment. Then she stood up. "I have to go," she said. "My extra shift starts in 3 hours, and Napoleon has probably already destroyed at least one of Martha's ferns." Nathan nodded. "Emma." She stopped at the door. "Thank you," he said again. "Really?" Emma smiled. "When you need another stolen blanket and sunrise moment, You know where to find me." And she left, leaving Nathan alone on the rooftop. But he didn't feel alone. For the first time in a long time. Nathan returned to Millbrook 3 days later. This time he called ahead. Let them know he was coming. Prepared himself for the possibility that Lucas wouldn't want to see him. What he wasn't prepared for was Lucas closing the door in his face. Literally. Nathan was in the middle of saying, "Hi, I came to," when the wooden door closed 3 inches from his nose. He stood on the porch, blinking at the closed door. From inside the house, he heard Diane's voice. "Lucas, that was rude." And Lucas's response, "He's a billionaire. He can buy manners if he wants them." Nathan waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3. The door opened again. This time, Lucas appeared with an expression that said, "I didn't want to do this, but my mother made me." She said, "I have to at least hear what you have to say," Lucas said. "You have 5 minutes. I came to do the right thing." Lucas crossed his arms. "Which would be?" "Recognize you, officially, as our father's heir." The silence that followed was absolute. Lucas blinked. "What? You're his son," Nathan said. "That means you have a right to the inheritance, to the name, to everything our father left." "I don't want his money." "I know, but it's not about wanting, it's about what's right." Lucas was quiet for a long moment. Something in his expression changed. Not much, but enough for Nathan to notice. "Why are you doing this?" Lucas finally asked. His voice had lost some of its edge. "Because my father hid you for 30 years. Because he treated you like a shameful secret, and because you deserve more than that. You're going to lose half your fortune. Probably. And the company board? Your mother? They won't accept this." Nathan shrugged. "My mother doesn't accept a lot of things. That doesn't mean she's right." Lucas stayed quiet. Then, against all odds, he laughed. It was a short laugh, more surprise than humor. "You're strange," he said. Nathan almost smiled. "Someone told me that recently." Lucas hesitated, then stepped aside. "Come in," he said. "My mom made coffee, and apparently I have to be civilized." 3 hours later, Nathan was sitting in Diane's kitchen, drinking his 3rd coffee of the day, listening to Lucas make jokes about being the poor son in a Mexican soap opera. "Imagine," Lucas was saying, gesturing with his cup, the headline, "Billionaire heir discovers secret brother. Dysfunctional family grows by 1 member. They're going to make a movie about us. Who do you think would play you?" "I'm voting for that guy who plays the action hero, but sadder." Nathan didn't know how to respond. He wasn't used to humor about terrible situations, but Emma would be laughing, he thought. Emma would understand. "The press is going to go crazy," Nathan said. "The press is already crazy," Lucas replied. "Your scandal is everywhere. Did you know there's an online group dedicated to theories about your father? One of the theories is that he was actually 3 different men taking turns." "What?" "I know. Genius, right? Would explain a lot." Diane shook her head, but she was smiling. "You two are impossible." "It's genetic," Lucas said. "Apparently." Nathan returned to Chicago at nightfall. He wasn't prepared for what awaited him. Victoria was in the hotel lobby, sitting in one of the leather armchairs, impeccable as always, looking at him as if she could turn him to dust with her gaze. "Nathan," she said, "we need to talk." "Mother." She didn't wait for an answer. She stood up and headed toward the elevator, clearly expecting him to follow. Nathan followed her. In the executive floor office, Victoria turned to face him as soon as the door closed. "What do you think you're doing? Doing the right thing." "The right thing." Her voice rose. "You're about to destroy everything your father built. Everything our family built. Because of an illegitimate son nobody knows. He's my brother. He's a mistake. A mistake your father should have dealt with decades ago." Nathan felt something cold spread through his chest. "Dealt with how, mother?" Victoria didn't answer. But her expression said everything. "You knew," Nathan said. It wasn't a question. "You always knew about Diane, about Lucas." "I knew what I needed to know to protect this family." "Protect?" Nathan laughed, but there was no humor. "You call this protecting? Pretending they didn't exist? Letting my father live a double life for 3 decades? It was easier that way." "For whom?" Victoria didn't answer. The silence that followed was heavy, loaded with decades of secrets and lies. "I'm going to acknowledge Lucas," Nathan said finally. "Publicly, officially. He's going to have the rights he should have had since birth. If you do that, I'll go to the board. I'll ask them to remove you from the presidency." "Do what you want, mother." Nathan walked to the door. "But I'm not going to live the lie you created anymore." Nathan, he stopped, turned around. Victoria was standing in the middle of the room, her face twisted in an expression Nathan couldn't tell was anger or fear. "If you do this," she said, "you'll lose everything." "Maybe," Nathan agreed, "or maybe I'll finally discover what's worth keeping." And he walked out, closing the door behind him. In the hallway, Nathan leaned against the wall for a moment. His heart was racing, his hands trembling slightly. He had just defied his mother. He had threatened to destroy decades of family secrets. He had put everything at risk, the company, the fortune, the position. And yet, he felt lighter than he had in years. His phone vibrated in his pocket. A message. It was from Emma. Napoleon invaded Martha's apartment for the 8th time. This time he knocked over the TV. "She's threatening to call animal control. I'm negotiating peace with homemade brownies. Wish me luck." Nathan read the message 3 times. Then he did something he hadn't done in a long time. He smiled, for real, and replied, "Brownies are an excellent diplomatic strategy. Napoleon would be proud." The reply came seconds later. "Napoleon has no concept of diplomacy. He operates in imperial conquest mode. No remorse." Nathan laughed, a real laugh that escaped before he could hold it back. And he realized, standing in that hallway after one of the hardest conversations of his life, that the only person he wanted to talk to was a clumsy housekeeper with a conquering cat and a dream of a bed and breakfast. Life was truly strange. The crisis exploded on a Monday. The headlines were everywhere. Harrington Hotel's CEO temporarily removed. Financial scandal deepens. Board demands investigation. Billionaire family at war. Mother and son on opposite sides. Emma read everything during her lunch break, sitting in the locker room, her sandwich forgotten beside her. Nathan had been removed. Victoria had followed through on her threat. And now the man Emma had seen on the rooftop at 3 in the morning, vulnerable, broken, more human than any billionaire had the right to be, was in the eye of the storm. She thought about sending a message, thought about asking if he was okay, thought about saying something, anything. But what do you say to someone who's losing everything? So Emma did what she always did when she didn't know what to do. She went back to work. Room 112 was empty when she passed by. The Do Not Disturb sign had disappeared. The luggage, too. Nathan had left. Emma felt something tighten in her chest. It wasn't a surprise. It was obvious he wouldn't stay in a hotel that wasn't technically his anymore. But his absence in the hallway felt wrong. Like something was missing. She finished her shift on autopilot. Cleaned rooms, restocked carts, smiled at guests, pretended everything was normal. At 6 in the evening, when she finally left the hotel, Emma went to the bakery on the corner to buy a chocolate croissant she definitely didn't need, but that her soul demanded. But what she didn't see was Nathan watching her. The bakery was called Sweet Corner, and it was the kind of place that looked like it came out of a romantic comedy movie. Exposed brick walls, the smell of fresh dough, a line that always took longer than it should because the ladies in front couldn't decide between the carrot cake and the cheesecake. Emma was in the middle of the line, looking at her phone without really seeing it when she heard the voice. "Emma?" She looked up. Nathan was standing at the bakery door. He looked different. He wasn't wearing a suit for the first time since Emma had known him. He was wearing jeans and a blue shirt with rolled-up sleeves. His hair was messier than usual, and there was something in his eyes she couldn't identify. "Nathan?" Emma said. "What are you?" "I need to talk to you." The entire line turned to look. Emma felt her face heat up. "Here?" she whispered. "Now?" "Yes, but there are people, a lot of people." Nathan looked around as if only now noticing they were in a crowded bakery on a Friday night. "I know," he said. "But I've spent the last 2 weeks losing everything. My position, my family, he paused, my sense of who I am. And the only thing that became clear in all this chaos is that I don't want to lose you too." Emma opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. The lady behind her, a woman of about 60 with purple hair and a leopard print coat, poked Emma in the back. "Honey," she said loudly, "if you don't answer this handsome man, I will." "Martha," her friend scolded, "let the girl process." "Process what? It's obvious he's in love. Look at his face." "That's none of our business. We're in a bakery line. Everything is our business." Emma wanted to disappear. Wanted the floor to open up and swallow her. Wanted, "I like you," Nathan said, completely ignoring the debate happening behind Emma. "I know I'm complicated. I know my family is a disaster. I know you have every right to want distance from all this chaos. But, Emma whispered, but you're the first person in years who made me want to smile. You talk too much and fall on flat surfaces and have a cat that doesn't recognize territorial boundaries. And even so, or maybe because of that, you're the most real person I know. The silence in the bakery was absolute. Even the lady at the register had stopped serving to watch. This is better than a Mexican soap opera, the purple-haired lady commented to her friend. Martha. What? It's true. Emma looked at Nathan, looked at the line, looked at Nathan again. You're making a declaration of love in the middle of a bakery, she finally said. Technically, I haven't said love yet, Nathan replied. But if you want, I can. No. Emma raised her hands. I mean, not here. She gestured at the audience, everyone watching. Too late for that, honey, the purple-haired lady said. We're already emotionally invested. Martha! Nathan took a step toward Emma. I know the timing is horrible, he said, quieter now. I know I'm in the middle of the worst crisis of my life. But I also know that when everything fell apart, the only person I could think about was you. And that has to mean something. Emma swallowed hard. She thought about all the reasons to say no. The difference in worlds, his family, the scandal, the fact that she was a housekeeper and he was, even removed, the heir to an empire. She thought about Victoria, about how she had looked at Emma as if she were less than nothing. She thought about all the ways this could go wrong. And then she thought about Nathan on the rooftop at 3 a.m, vulnerable, real, holding her hand while the sun rose over Chicago. I don't know how to do this, Emma finally said. I don't know how to be a billionaire's girlfriend. I don't know how to deal with scandals and boards of directors and mothers who hate me. I don't know either, Nathan said. I don't know how to be anything other than the CEO I was programmed to be. But maybe, he hesitated, maybe we can learn together. Emma was silent for a long moment. The entire bakery held its breath. You're ruining my crop purchase, she finally said. Nathan blinked. What? I came here to buy a chocolate croissant. That's all I wanted. A simple moment after a hard day. And now you're here, being all. She gestured vaguely. This, and I can't even think about croissants. The corner of Nathan's mouth twitched. Is that a yes? That's an I need to think, Emma said. But it's also I'm not saying no. It's a this is too much to process in the middle of a bakery with an audience that clearly has no boundaries. I heard that. The purple-haired lady protested. Good, Emma replied. Nathan was smiling now, a real smile that completely transformed his face. So, he said, can I call you? You can call me, Emma confirmed. But now I'm going to buy my croissant, and you're going to leave this bakery before someone films this and puts it on the internet. Nathan nodded. There. He walked to the door, stopped, turned around. Emma? Yes? Thank you for not saying no, and he left. The bakery exploded with comments. That was the most romantic thing I've ever seen. You should have said yes immediately. Who was that man? Honey, you know he's rich, right? I saw the watch. Emma ignored everyone. She went to the counter, ordered her chocolate croissant, and only when she was outside, alone on the sidewalk, did she allow herself to smile. She hadn't said yes, but she also hadn't said no. And for now, that was enough. A few months passed. The board voted 3-2 in favor of Nathan. It wasn't unanimous, it wasn't easy, but it was enough. He remained as CEO of Harrington Hotels, now with an ethical restructuring plan that included, among other things, officially recognizing Lucas as an heir. The press had a field day as expected. Billionaire CEO recognizes secret half-brother. Scandal becomes redemption story. Harrington, the man who chose family over legacy. Lucas, to everyone's surprise, handled the sudden fame with the same sharp humor as always. When a reporter asked how he felt being heir to a billion-dollar fortune, he replied, Honestly, I'm still processing. Ask me again in about 20 years. Diane refused the money offered. Said she had lived 55 years without it and wasn't going to change now. But she accepted an anonymous donation for the hospital where she worked, enough to build a new pediatric wing. And Victoria? Victoria surprised everyone. She showed up at Nathan's office on a Tuesday in October, 3 months after the board vote. She was different, less rigid, less impeccable. There was something in her eyes Nathan hadn't seen before. I came to apologize, she said. Nathan almost dropped his coffee. What? Not for everything. Victoria sat in the chair across from his desk. I still think you were reckless, that you could have handled this more discreetly. But, she hesitated. I pretended not to see for too long. Your father, the lies, Lucas. I knew. Maybe not the details, but I knew something was wrong, and I chose to ignore it. Nathan stayed silent. That doesn't make me innocent, Victoria continued. It makes me complicit. And her voice faltered slightly, I don't want to be that kind of person anymore. The apology wasn't perfect. Victoria was still Victoria, still had too many opinions and too little empathy. But it was a start. Nathan accepted. Not for her, he discovered. For himself. The first Christmas with the expanded family was exactly as uncomfortable as everyone expected. Lucas made jokes nobody understood. Victoria spent half of dinner in awkward silence. Diane brought an apple pie that was slightly burnt on the edges. Nathan didn't know where to sit. And Emma arrived late because Napoleon had escaped for the third time that week, and she spent 40 minutes searching for him in the building. He was in Martha's apartment, she said, entering the dining room with messy hair and cheeks red from the cold. Sleeping on top of the new TV, the one he knocked over last time. It's like he's leaving a message. Lucas was the first to laugh. Then Diane. Then, against all odds, Victoria. And Nathan looked at Emma, clumsy, late, talking too much about the cat as always, and realized this was the most real moment his family had had in decades. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And real was more than he had ever expected. The Boutique Inn pilot project was actually Grace's idea. You need something positive for the press, she said in a strategy meeting. Something that shows Harrington Hotels is changing, investing in smaller communities, humanizing the brand. Nathan immediately thought of Emma. A small, cozy place, with homemade breakfast and cats in the garden. I have someone, he said. Someone who knows exactly what this project needs. That's how Emma Sullivan, former housekeeper at the Sterling Grand Hotel, became hospitality manager for Harrington Hotel's new Boutique Inn program. This is, Emma said when Nathan told her. You're giving me a job because we're together. I'm giving you a job because you're the most qualified person I know, Nathan replied. You studied hotel management. You have a complete business plan in your head. You know the breakfast menu for every day of the week. Bacon on Sundays isn't a business plan. It's the foundation of one. Emma was silent for a moment. You really think I can do this? I think, Nathan said, that you can do anything you want, including falling on flat surfaces in statistically improbable ways. Emma laughed and accepted. Napoleon got a sister the following month. A black cat named Josephine found abandoned near the hotel. Emma said it was karma. Nathan said it was a mistake. Martha, the neighbor, said it was the apocalypse. 2? She exclaimed when she saw Emma carrying the new cat down the hallway. Now there are 2? Technically, Josephine is much calmer than Napoleon, Emma tried. That's what you say now. Wait until she discovers where my window is. Napoleon, to everyone's surprise, accepted Josephine immediately. The two became inseparable, sleeping curled up together, sharing invasions of Martha's apartment, reigning together over the small 2-room empire Emma called home. They're the same, Emma said one night, watching the 2 cats sleep on the couch. Imperialists, no sense of boundaries, absolutely convinced the world revolves around them. Sounds familiar, Nathan commented. Be quiet, he laughed, and Emma realized in that moment that the sound of his laughter, real, free, without reservation, was something she would never tire of hearing. The 10th floor hallway seemed different now. Emma was standing in front of the door 2012, exactly where she had fallen months ago. Nathan was beside her. This is where you fell on the floor, he said. This is where you almost smiled, she replied. They stood in silence for a moment, looking at the closed door. It seems like it was a long time ago, Emma said. It was 8 months ago. 8 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days, Emma corrected. I'm good with numbers. Nathan looked at her. You counted? I count everything. It's a problem. You already know this. The corner of his mouth lifted. That almost smile she knew so well. Except it wasn't an almost smile anymore. It had transformed into something complete, something real. Nathan Harrington had learned to smile again, and Emma liked to think she had something to do with it. You know, Nathan said, you forgot a title on your business card. Emma frowned. What title? Specialist in Preventive Maintenance Procedures for Housekeeping Carts. Emma laughed. A real laugh that echoed through the empty hallway. You saved that for 8 months? 8 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days, Nathan replied. I'm also good with numbers. They stood in the hallway smiling at each other like people in love. And Emma realized in that moment that it didn't matter how many scandals, crises, or imperialist cats appeared along the way. She had found her place. It wasn't an inn in the countryside, yet. It wasn't the exact dream she had planned. It was better. It was real. It was his, and it was hers, and it was theirs together. And for now, for always, that was more than enough. True love isn't born from wealth or appearance, but from the courage to do what's right. Because only someone with the character to face their own truth can build something real with another person. If you felt that too, leave in the comments the rating you would give. And if you believe that everyone needs someone who loves not what you have, but who you choose to be, subscribe to our channel.